Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Friday. If you are in the Eastern time zone, like Sandra and myself, it is the afternoon. If you're elsewhere, possibly another country, as we've had some global participants, it's still morning. So enjoy it while it lasts. But welcome to yet another episode of Adapt to Accelerate. For those of you that have joined us consistently over the past, welcome back. We're so pleased that you continue to invest in yourself to join us. And for those of you that are new for the first time, welcome into this community. We have now over 100 people that have joined us over the past month and a half, and just elated that you are prioritizing taking seriously your own professional growth and personal growth as it relates to these areas that we speak to you and share with our wisdom and expertise. So we'll go ahead and dive in just a second for an agenda review, but I welcome you, if you're in a position to, while you're hopefully enjoying your lunch, drop in comments, say hello. Love to know where you're from. Put in a country, put in a state, put in a town. Comments are optional, but a great way to drive some engagement. And also welcome throughout our brief session today, because it will go fast. If you have any questions or any comments or things that relate to you, would welcome that as well. So I'm Pete Van Overwall, and with me is
Sandra Metzger. Good to be with you all again. We made it again to a Friday.
Yes. So we're elated that you're here. Our agenda is we're kicking off. We'll keep it short and sweet because we really want to hop into today's mission. I'll introduce that in a second. But all of this, like we know, experience without reflection and action doesn't hold any meaning. So we don't want this to be like a good back rub where you feel good for 30 minutes. We're actually going to hopefully inspire you to take some action to grow forward. And then we'll recap with what you can expect next week and in the future. So that being said, Sandra, tell us what we're doing, why we do it, and how we do it.
Okay, well, for those who are new to this little series that we're doing here, we are trying to take the best nuggets from the work that Pete and I have been doing and the information that we're curating and creating related to adaptability and innovation, change leadership, and AI. And so what we thought we would do is just give this little 30-minute presentation on Friday, engage our audience, let you have some time to think about it, and really challenge you to start taking action on it on Monday. So welcome to today's Friday session.
All right. In your mission today, that whether you fully realize it or not, we're starting off in the area of change, which is deep and vast. And in my experience, the best way is to keep it simple. Not that I always do that, but here we're talking about leading change. Now, you may be a formal leader responsible for big P&L responsibilities or a vision, but you may also be an individual contributor. And I've always said that lead from wherever you are. So all of us have an invitation and opportunity to lead in our own way and our own style, regardless of reporting structure, title, pay, all that good stuff. And so with the leading change starting here, it's about the foundations of change. And the good news is this is not a novel problem in life. Change has been studied, maybe too much. There's a lot of tools out there, but in my experience as a black belt and a change leader, and even on a personal life, and Sandra and I are going to share some high-level personal stories here. We all experience this. And the change curve is that place to start. Because we know that a change can be hard, it is predictable, and yes, it is an emotional process. The emotions are so critical for us as human beings. We like to rationalize our decisions to say, oh, I bought this car because of these reasons. At the end of the day, the car you bought, the pair of shoes you bought, the vacation you took was decided emotionally, then supported by way of rationale. But here at the heart of the change curve is 5 well-documented, established, and proven through research emotions that we all go through. And the fact, so to legitimize what we're bringing to you, we're going to tell you about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and how she took the 5 stages of grief, which is a model created back in the late 60s, centered around terminally ill patients and families, and apply that into modern change theory that is well accepted and well endorsed and practiced either directly or indirectly. So, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was a Swiss psychologist that passed away, left us in 2004, but she left a pretty strong legacy. So, as a mother, as a wife, as a person, and a healthcare provider, she leaned heavily into the patient experience for the physician, for the families, the friends, the loved ones in and around the passing of life, on death and dying, and was the first to document these stages of grief, which I'm sure most of us have probably heard of, that it is a stage of process. And I think, reason why that's important is, these are hard and challenging experiences of life. I mean, losing a loved one, can't think of anything more impactful than that. And we try to want to rush through that to get over it, get back to normal. And yet, in reality, we have to allow ourselves to grow and evolve in our own space, our own time, and our own way through these cycles. So, the framework today is about starting with shock and denial, particularly when things happen suddenly. Anger, first natural, powerful emotion we have as humans. This bargaining process, this depression, which say, "Oh, this is real, and it's not going away." And then at some point in time, as we process through that, we begin to lean into our own human element of adaptability, hope, belief, not wanting to be there, and gradually get to the state of acceptance. Right? So not complicated from the model's perspective, but hard to go through, but it's natural and real. So, Sandra, have you had any experiences in your life related to this?
Well, I think that if we uh, are not experiencing change or this kind of flow, then I don't know what we're doing. You must be like holed up in your house and never leaving. But for those of us living life, I think we all have, we go through this process either on small scales or large scales. One of the work related examples I like to reference in this flow was a project that I worked really hard on and had a lot of investment in, not financially, but personally invested in a project, and the company decided that it was not a priority, and that was the right decision for them, but it meant a death for me that I had to walk through and process. And luckily I knew enough about this that I could take a step back and say, okay, Sandra, you know what's happening. And so maybe that's something too, for those of you who are joining us today and you think, well, I already know about this. Instead of just saying, okay, I already know this information, today might be a really good time to just say, am I living this? Like, where is this happening to me and where am I in the process? And just being mindful of that for the next few minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Sandra. I appreciate you sharing that, some vulnerability there. And I'll look to model that as well with my story in just a second. But when it comes to adult learning, when we're relearning or going deeper in a concept, the more we can relate that as something that's personal and real for us, the brain fires new neuron pathways to make it real and sticky, so that just isn't something that you experience for 30 minutes on a Friday during lunch, but it could have a lasting impact for sure. So I'll tell a story that as I was early in my career, on a job that I competed for. I was in the hospitality industry, took on a role for a company that was reopening a hotel in a major urban environment. I'll keep it simple to keep it simple. And I scaled a sales team to help get this new hotel up and running. And so much excitement, so much expectation for revenue generation and performance. Well, the hotel didn't exactly perform and deliver on the company's expectations. I, being the director of sales and marketing, someone has to be accountable for that. And it was me. So I got what I called invited to leave, invited to let go. And of course, I put a humorous spin on that. But basically, at the end of the day, I said, Pete, we need to make a change. And, you're no longer in this role. And so as much as that, I remember that exact conversation and the taste in my mouth when I realized this was becoming real, right? It was powerful for me. Quick, really personal side note, I thought I had earned the things I was building and gaining in my career. But what I learned through that experience is none of that is guaranteed in life, just like health, just like our talents, just like so many things that we think we're owed and earned. It's not, it's a gift, right? So that being said, I immediately went through this stage of denial. It's not me, right? You really don't want to let me go. There's all these other reasons why this business isn't succeeding. It's not me, right? And then anger, and then bargaining and depression. Okay, so we're going to go through that. So we're going to now dive into the model, each one of those 5 emotions. And as we explain it to you, I think they're pretty self-explanatory. But what Sandra and I are going to do is look to tie it to something that's realistic. So when someone's in the state of denial, how does it manifest itself? How does it show up? Right. And this is important because you need to be able to see this in your own space, in your own way. How is this showing up for me? And if you're involved in a team, how can you spot this in others? And if you're a leader, how is this happening to your team or people in the company? Now, everyone's not going to be on the same stage of the change curve, unfortunately, but at least you'll get better experience to know this person's here, this person's there. People are going to be at different places at different times. So how does it manifest itself? What are the behaviors? How can you observe someone acting in a way that say this person now is in the bargaining phase? What's the impact? If someone stays in this phase too long, because that's the point. How can you as a leader, or how can yourself personally give yourself permission to then go on to the next phase intentionally? And then what's the leader's role? How can you help yourself, others that you may be, colleagues with or responsible for progress? So hopefully that'll take what feels like a pretty straightforward topic, although it's complex because it's emotional, in a practical way. All right, so I'll start, and Sandra and I will take turns. So it's not just me talking; it's both of us. But denial. What I say, denial is not a river in Egypt, if that's still around anymore. So denial is the first place. I can't believe this is happening to me, and that's actually how it manifests itself. Someone's saying it or they're thinking it. This can't be happening. Right? I didn't anticipate this. I feared this, and now it's happening. Right? The behaviors are, you may begin to ignore announcements. Right, Sandra, you heard, this project is being shut down. You're like, oh, they didn't really mean that. Or it's hard to interpret an email just correctly that way. It couldn't quite be. You may avoid conversations to say, I don't want to be a part of the conversation about what the new path forward is, because I just can't get my head around the fact that we're pivoting away from something that I care deeply about. And then you want to still cling to past processes. Say, well, I'm going to just keep doing it. I'm going to drag my feet because this isn't happening. I shouldn't invest myself to change it. I'm going to stay with what I know. It's a part of denial. The impact here is when you or a team of individuals are in denial and stay there too long, the productivity dips, because rather than moving forward, people are continuing to drive by looking in the rearview mirror. And if you think about driving on the highway, that's dangerous. Bad things can happen. And what a leader can do when a person or a team is in a state of denial is provide clear, repeated communications to make the change visible and understandable. If you're a parent, it's like your kid. You got to repeat it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times before something sticks. As adults, we're never different. But it is a soft way. Say it's here, it's real. I'm going to keep it in front of you to help you, invite you to the next phase. Sandra, take it away.
Yeah, my husband and I kind of have this inside joke that when one of us says, "I think you're in denial," and the other one says, "No, I'm not." So the next phase is anger, and that can manifest itself in several ways. But really, we start reacting emotionally with that frustration, resistance. We say, why is this happening to me? We can even, our voices can get louder. We can start blaming other people. We start it's just, anger is usually this like, you're a burst. And really what happens when people start feeling angry, which is normal, remember, like there's a period of feeling angry. But when you stay too long, like Pete said, when you stay too long in that particular phase and you don't recognize it and work through it, there can definitely be conflicts. There are arguments, mistrust, and the morale in your team will go down. The leader's role in that is really about hearing it, making sure that you are actively listening and acknowledging those emotions, naming it, right? Naming it. And if that anger is directed toward you as the leader, to make sure that you are avoiding that defensive stance. And this is really important for people to be able to feel heard, to acknowledge that they are feeling angry, and to be able to then move past it.
Thank you. Thank you. So next is bargaining. And it reminds me when I was a young adult, I think it's my college days, I went grocery shopping and I put way too much in my cart, got it onto the checkout counter. They rang it all up and I didn't have enough money. It's like, well, how much is it if I put this back? How much is it if I put this back? Right. So bargaining is this notion. If we just do this, maybe we won't have to change this. And that's just this natural way of trying to negotiate our way through life. How can we mitigate or manage it? And so the behavior is attempts to negotiate or find workarounds, right, to minimize the disruption, or nostalgicizing or romanticizing the old way. And the impact this has on a team and organization is it creates a continued uncertainty and compromises delay and the momentum to continue to move forward, right? So it continues to erode in case this causes this pause that, time is important, as we've alluded to. Speed related to change in another series is key. And so what a leader can do is really clarify the non-negotiables. This is changing. It's going to happen this way on this date. And these are the resources that are provided to helping you get from here to here. Right. It could be that one-on-one that Sandra talked about, that continued communication. More than likely, hopefully, there's going to be some training involved with the new procedure, the new process. And then don't forget, you can also rely on your social networks to realize what you might have in common with others. And a good leader can create those environments, especially leveraging those that are further down the grief cycle and the change cycle, so that we can be inspired and motivated from others. What about depression, Sandra? This is a hard one.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is happening when you get to that depression is that you recognize that the bargaining didn't work. And so while you're bargaining, you still have some hope, right? Like you're thinking, you can figure out a way. And those of us who are optimists are always trying to figure out a way. But when that doesn't work, and then we are left with that feeling of perceived hopelessness, and you think, okay, then what's the point? We begin to withdraw, we disengage from whatever it is we're doing, or our relationships, or just our joy sometimes, and we're less creative. This is where people are going through that quiet quitting that has become pretty popular in news articles and things like that. But that's because there's a lot of statistics to say quiet quitting is happening. So obviously, when that happens, performance goes down, and in overall the business is not being as productive as it needs to be, or as effective. And so we really need to take time as leaders to reconnect people with the purpose, their purpose, the purpose of the work, celebrate small wins, offer support and resources. Again, all of these, the leader can listen, name, and address what is happening in a really clear and specific way.
Yeah, and as difficult as this one is, I'd like to say that on the other side of depression is acceptance. And I'm enamored by the relationship of a peak and a valley. We think about how beautiful it is to climb a mountain and get to the top. Well, that's true, but what makes the summit so precious is the fact that you've come from the valley, right? And when you can navigate change, think about in your own life when you've gotten to that place of acceptance, that new reality, that empowerment where hope comes back and agency to move forward. It really is a victory, and it should be celebrated like that, regardless whether we think about it or recognize it or not. But at this point in time, the it manifests as saying, oh, now I understand. This is why this is done. I can see that now the mission of our company, the reason why I joined this organization or what I care about, it still hasn't changed. Just the path to get there is different. And I think I can work with this. I think I can make this happen. Not sure yet, but I'm beginning to be open-minded. And when a mind is open and there's some willingness to go and try and learn through error and growth, wonderful things can happen. So the behaviors is now willingness to engage. Maybe I'll read that email. Maybe I'll participate in that town hall. Maybe will join that brainstorm session that's been called to contribute my ideas. That's where you can begin to explore new skills. I'm thinking about all the people that are being impacted. If you're a digital designer, for example, and how your profession and craft is being challenged by AI-based solutions, you're probably somewhere in here. But there's still opportunity despite all that. And the impact is now this shifts the energy towards forward progress. Simply stated, you're not driving by looking out the rearview mirror anymore. You're driving forward with intention. And that's where the journey really begins, even though you've done a lot of hard work to get here. Want to recognize that. And so, the leader's role is to once that signal is that people are in the acceptance mode, stay present. The leader's job has just begun because now your team is showing up and they want to play this new game, right? So training, recognize contributions, reinforce the benefits of change, small wins. These are all the things that continue to build momentum so that we don't slip back into the doubt. Say, well, see, I told them it wouldn't work, right? They have to be now involved with the success story. All right, so I hope that was helpful. I alluded to the fact that Kubler-Ross's emotional grief cycle has been modernized. A classic book is The Change Cycle by Salerno and Brock. And if you go to any formal, change certification programs or change seminars and such, this book is often highly referenced. So now the model looks a little bit different. So we have time, which is the constant, and then motivation and performance on the y-axis. So yes, the red dots, shock, denial, frustration, depression, exactly as stated. But now as we before we get to acceptance, that's where we're focusing more on, once the depression piece is past, experimentation, dipping your toe in the water. What can be possible here? This is where, if you're a change leader, putting forth invitations to just try the new process. Let's call it a pilot. You may not be convinced. The new process you're rolling out may actually fail a little bit, but change leaders know how to do a pilot to say, we're going to expect to fail a little bit, but we're going to learn from it so that when we rev it next, it's going to be better. So then, because of that experimentation and decision, I think 80% of me is enough okay, practically, emotionally, that I'm going to make this decision to go for it because the path behind me really is now pretty unattractive. And then with that, moving towards integration. So if you're a change leader, formally or informally, you know this, but it's recognizing the pathway to get there. I hope it helps you realize where you start and where you end up are two different things. Any comments there, Sandra?
Yeah, I was thinking about one of our many conversations where we said, change is changing right now. And when I look at this curve and I think about, you mentioned AI, and I do a lot of work with AI implementation, like the experimenting with AI might be the shock that triggers all of this, right?
Yeah.
You can be amazed at what it can do and turn right around and think, oh, will they even need me in 6 months? And so I think that although a lot of this is consistent, just where it surprises us by showing up can it's changing. And so even knowing that this was the topic today, I appreciate pausing, looking at the specific steps and thinking, okay, where am I? And in my thought process related to, I mean, I might be on a different place in 5 different changes that I'm experiencing right now, right? And so even just mapping that is really helpful.
Yeah. And I'm not great at emotions, so this can be taxing when I have more. I'm in 3 of these cycles at the same time. Just shut me down, but it's fulfilling to grow, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I want to bring in
Pete,
here.
one more
Yes.
thing I think I'd
Mhm.
like to share too, because I know we talk about this as well. We assume that, I mean, we assume that those of you who are listening are leading this in some way or experiencing this in some way. If you are a leader experiencing this and your team is experiencing this, not only is this something that Pete and I can help with your team, but you might just need someone to help walk you through it if you are a leader. You and both Pete and I, or the two of us together, are absolutely open to meeting one-on-one with leaders who just need someone to help them walk through that as they lead their own teams through the change.
Yeah.
Just wanted to put that in.
Yeah, thanks, Sandra. It makes a lot of sense. Well, to that point, I want to introduce. I've been now business partner with Experience Point for a couple of years, and they're based out of Toronto, Canada, and they've done amazing work around change and learning through change. And a lot of this is related to playing a game. How do you play a game in which you're trying to lead change about a fictitious company that's going through all of this cycle? Because you can learn by playing a game because it's safe, it's experimentation. But then what you learn from it, what worked, what didn't work, that's what drives experience-based learning and progress. So, fundamentally, when it comes to the change curve, time and performance, this challenge comes cruising along, right? Merger acquisitions coming next year, new technology integration or new product launch, market extension, whatever that looks like. And then what we expect and hope, maybe inadvertently at the leadership level or maybe overly optimistic, we expect that once that event occurs, the impact is going to have a positive upward momentum, increase revenue, increase market share, reduce cost, greater efficiencies in our product. But what really happens is the fact that no, that doesn't happen. Yeah, impact can happen, but there's a delay, and it's what's called the dip. And this is the dip. This is the cycle that can be deep where you can lose people. It can erode time, lost productivity, and provide significantly different results and delayed results if not managed through effectively. So put in square the leader, you, formally or informally, as you are a player in this game, in this dip, how you show up, and it is a matter of how you being and doing, how you are, your emotional intelligence, your empathy, your responsibility, the communication, leveraging on relationships, establishing trust are key parts of being human. AI will never automate that, right? And then what you do to lead the team through these areas of change. And this is where the doing part is critical, because I talked about path from A to B is indirect and crazy. The more you can be and do using, coaching skills, mindsets, and a process can get you to A and B more directly. So Sandra, help us get our head around this here.
Well, we have the focusing on the skills that you need. This is pretty self-explanatory, but the skills you need, the processes, and the tools, which again can all 3 be triggers for this change, emotional reaction to change, and the way that we get through it. And getting through it is the only way to, you can't circumvent it. You have to just work through it. So making sure that you have these three things, and these are the things that we focus on, that Pete and I focus on when we provide services and training, and either help leaders to do this for their teams or go in and support with some really cool things that Pete's going to tell you about.
Yeah, so this will be the framework for additional sessions on LinkedIn Live in and around these areas. And quite honestly, you need to have a little bit in each category. If you only have one or two of the three, you're not really hitting on all cylinders. So we'll leave this as a footprint for now and invite you back to know how we'll go deeper stemming from this foundational course today. All right, so that moving forward, because we're about out of time. Final thought is, if you understand the change curve, you can lead yourself through it and lead other people through it, rather than letting it be a roller coaster ride or feeling a victim that never helps you move forward efficiently or effectively. Succinctly in one slide here, one point. So the question I would ask you to consider, we call them guiding questions because they give enough space for you to explore through. Where is each person, or you, where are you on the change curve right now? And how do you know? I hope we've given you some clues of what you can look for, how people behave, what they're doing and not doing, how it shows up, the questions they're asking themselves. Number two, what actions or communications will help them move to the next stage? It's okay to recognize where they're at, but you need to understand the next stage in order to help bridge the gap so there's forward progress. And then last but not least, we have to lead the change and demonstrate the behaviors we want others to adopt. So am I modeling this adaptability? Am I talking about what it was like for me when I was in the anger phase, and what did it take for me to get past that? Storytelling is a powerful tool in all of life, not to mention for a leader. And then action steps, what can you do? I would encourage you to find it online. We'll provide resources we send out to everybody that participates, the Edge Notes, which is a distillation on one page of everything we've talked about, including link to resources. Draw out the change curve, and you know what the change is in your life. Think about where people are, including yourself, on that cycle. Powerful exercise. And then get a sense based upon that how you need to adjust your style strategically, tactically, and practically. And then if you've gone through a change, maybe there's nothing hot on your plate right now. First of all, enjoy that while it lasts. Secondly, look back the change you just went through and self-reflect to know who and how went through, when and why, how long. What can you learn from that? And even better, if you bring that into a discussion with your team, because you're now waiting for that next change to occur, look back. There's still opportunities to reflect and learn and benefit from what you had there. Any closing final thoughts, Sandra, from you?
No, I just want to hear what's next, Pete. What's coming next week?
All right. These weeks are flying by, but now we're going towards the tail end, the dog days of summer, August 22nd. We're going to now stay in this change space, but I'm going to go into one of my most favorite areas of the adaptability quotient. If you joined us, we did an overview that adaptability is now, it's the most critical skill that employers and employees have to demonstrate in order to thrive in change. And hope is my pick for a place to start. It's a character trait, right? It's undervalued. We all know that hope is not a strategy, but it's a character trait that is proven statistically to have a 0.63 positive correlation to how adaptable you, your team is, or an entire organization, right? So we're going to break it down into 3 elements and help you understand and learn what the hope model looks like, how you can calibrate where you're hopeful or not, and then what you can do to grow into a state of hope to be more adaptable and enjoy what you do more at work and in personal and life, so that we can enjoy this ride that we're on while we're riding it. So that's all, folks. Want to thank you again. Shout out from Indianapolis, Indiana. Always great to tag team together, Sandra. Reach out to us if you want to have offline conversations. Look for your Edge Notes, and stay well. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Take care.